All right, are we live yet? Do we have audio? Are we live? Is this thing on? Ah, bloody hell. What is this? All right. Systems are suggesting that we are live. I see we have Uncle Larry in chat. That tells me we're probably live. All right, let's light this rocket, so to speak. All right, good. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, children of all ages, I am the Old Humble Guy, at least the floating head of the Old Humble Guy. This is the Old Humble Distilling Company. By way of introduction, for those tuning in who are relatively new here, and we have a lot of people who are relatively new here, I own the Old Humble Distilling Company. I make delicious whiskey, primarily whiskey. We also do some gin, vodka. I have a batch of rum that is cooking right now, or fermenting right now, and next week we will do a distillation run live on one of these things. I'm going to warn you ahead of time, it's not exciting to watch me distill stuff because it's literally just watching water boil. But, you know, hey, we'll put a camera on the column and watch the stuff do things. Anyway, today we're bottling whiskey. Here's the picture-in-picture. That is where I'm going to be working. That's my hand right there. That's where I'm going to be working, and let's get to it. I got to load up some bottles there on the table here. That's my bottler right there. There. That's my bottler right there, and I got to load up some bottles there next to it so that we can get cracking. I got to move my heat gun over here to the table as well. That is going to get on my nerves to no end. So I've got to get rid of this. We're going to be making rye today. See, just like a proper, decent person. I come to the shop. I have a clean shirt. I've got my wallet, my keys, my pocket knife. I got all the stuff. It's like I'm a right and proper, upstanding member of society most of the time. All right. These buckets are what I use to clean out the lines for the whiskey. So I do different whiskeys with each step of the process. I guess I could turn the camera a little bit. I do different whiskeys in each step of the process. Hello, how are you today? Turn. All right, so I'm going to be going back and forth from here. I do different whiskeys and gin in different steps of the process. So I'll do, one day I'll do gin, and then the rest of the week I'll do different whiskeys. So I clean the lines out, obviously, in between runs, because I don't want my whiskey to taste like gin. And I don't want my gin to taste like whiskey, obviously. The rum is going to taste like rum, as you might be able to guess. And I don't know exactly how many bottles of whiskey, of rye whiskey, rather, on average, how many gallons am I producing from an average batch? Well, average batches vary. This batch of rum it's the first batch of rum I've ever done. And it was supposed to be 20% alcohol by volume. Supposed to be 20 ABV. What I think I got is something closer to 15. So 15% of 25 gallons is 15% of 25 gallons is 25 plus half again is 12. So that would be 37, 370 rather. No, 37, yeah, 370. Move the decimal over, so it'd be 3.7 gallons of whiskey, or of rum, or 3.7 gallons of alcohol. That means I will probably get 5 gallons of distillate out of the batch. This is 6, 12, 24. Give me 3 cases. I'm hoping I can get 3 cases of rye out of what's left in there. And usually when I'm doing whiskey, it's 50 gallons at a time, because the whiskey gets done in the bigger barrels and the bigger batches. So whiskey is the big stills back here. There, those big stills are where I do my whiskey that I produce in house. That we do have a little bit that we source from across town. So all of our whiskey is still Texas whiskey. It's just contracted out to a larger distiller on the other side of town. I'm gonna move this stupid thing down. Gulf Coast Distilling is the guys I contract with, and they have a much larger facility, much larger production capacity than I've got, and I can contract with them to get much needed product and aging space. So the first bottles that come out, they look foamy like this, but that's not foam. That's just air bubbles inside the line. And once those air bubbles clear out, it becomes nice and clean. Usually I'll dump these first bottles. In fact, I'm going to dump these first bottles because not only is it going to be air in those lines, but it might be a little bit of water in those lines too. So I want to clean out whatever little bit of water is left behind from cleaning out the lines. I want to dump that stuff back into the barrel and clean it out. And just so y'all know, you, Uncle Larry, and anybody else who has turned in while I've been over here, because I can't see my phone. I don't even know where my phone is. Oh, it's back here behind me. For anybody else who is in chat and joined us, I'm going to do everything I can to avoid... Oh, hey, Uncle Larry, you found me from Uncensored Whiskey Wars. Cool. Well, thank you for coming by. I'm glad that there was a little bit of crossover with those guys. I like those guys. I like hanging out with those guys. But I'm going to do my best today to avoid the doom scrolling of the world. Everything's fucking on fire right now. We are invading. We're not invading. We're bombing 3 different countries. And I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about whiskey. I want to talk about ice cubes, ice spheres, whiskey, baseball. Baseball is in season. Basketball, Final Four season is coming up. I don't want to talk about the world burning down around me. I'm sick of the bad news. I'm sick of the fucking doom scrolling. We had an election yesterday. The election yesterday was a great goddamn day. I love election day in America. It is the best day. Yeah, we'll talk about election day for just a minute. It doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on when it comes to election day. Election day is the day when we get out there as one big, messy, dysfunctional family, and we function. It is my favorite. Well, my favorite civic holiday is July 4th. That's when we, as a country, are supposed to reaffirm our shared values. And lately, it has seemed that there's a lot of people that do not share the basic core American values, and that's fine. We will get back on track as a nation soon enough. I'm not worried about that. But as far as a civic day of action, the only civic day of action that we have in our country is election day. And on a good year, we'll have 2. On a really good year, we'll have 3 or 4. But, you know, we have primary day and we have general election day. And I absolutely love election day because it is the day that we as a people go out and do the thing, the one thing that unifies us as Americans. We vote. And I love it. I absolutely love it. It's the one thing that we as Americans do that unifies us as a people. We disagree on policy. It used to be we agreed on the problem, but we disagreed on policy. But we could go out and we at least would take action to address the problems that we agreed were problems and try to advance the ball a little bit. That is what I love. Oh, good. Worked at a chemical plant. But that's what I love about election day. We go out and we settle our differences like civilized men and women. We write down on a piece of paper that which we wish to have happen and expect to happen. And then we move on. Our guy wins, great. We work to hold them accountable. Our guy loses, fine. We work to have better ideas. And in the marketplace of ideas, we fight our war, our civil conflict, as it should be. We have people on both sides who should legitimately believe in what they're talking about. Not like on YouTube or TikTok or wherever the hell else where they're just doing it for clicks and likes. But in real world life, when you go and talk to people in the real world, in like a bar, you know, like what we used to do when we talked to people, they would say things that they really believed and wouldn't say stupid shit like, oh, you should just take all the homeless people and put them on a cruise ship and then sink the cruise ship. That'd solve the problem. Which is, yes, exactly 100% word for word quote of some dipshit on YouTube. We used to say things that we believed and believe in things we said. Ah, fuck. That's not a good sound. That means I've run out of rye. That's bad. That's real bad. Because I need to have like 12 cases, and I've got 1, 2, 3, maybe 4. This is not a great. I mean, I knew I didn't have 12 cases, but I hoped I had 3 full cases. This is going to give me just a little bit, so I'm going to switch over from rye in a minute. Let's see here. I'm going to lean this way. Yeah, it's not great. All right, so if I lean it that way, I can get everything down to the bottom of this barrel. I still have a case in inventory with a distributor. This is all going to Louisiana. And I got to switch over and make special reserve, bottles of special reserve, bottles of our straight whiskey as well. So it's not just this that I need to do. I got a whole like shipping order that I need to fulfill. Anyway, I love Election Day. Election Day is the bestest of days as far as days of civic action go in America. We don't have many days of civic action in America where we ask the citizens to go out and do a thing collectively. We don't have like Halloween is the closest thing we've got to a day of civic action, I suppose, where everybody gets out and goes and begs for candy. And that's only for kids, really. Adults don't do Halloween. At least they shouldn't. Well, maybe they should. I don't know. That's a topic for discussion on another day, but not today. I don't want to talk about that today. I think Halloween's kind of silly. Halloween people, I find to be kind of silly. Because I see Halloween as kind of a kid's event. And adults that do Halloween, they get all excited about Halloween. They're like, 30 days until Halloween. 360 shopping days until Halloween. Like, those people annoy me a lot. I'm fine if you decorate your house for Halloween. That's cool, whatever. They don't bother me. But it's like, people who call Halloween Spooky Day. Like, there's nothing spooky about Halloween. It's just a day. Kids dress up as superheroes. They don't even dress up as, like, goblins anymore. They don't egg your house. They don't do, I mean, nothing happens on Halloween. It's not like it's a nothing burger day. But, hey, people who decorate their house, whatever. Be festive. Decorate your house. I love that. I actually really do enjoy it when people decorate their house for Halloween. That's kind of a cool thing to see. All right, and that is it. That is the bottom of the barrel. I got maybe 2 more bottles out of that. That's cool. I do have funnels, but here's the thing. When you're a seasoned professional, and watch this, you don't need a funnel. It just goes right in there like a damn boss. Right in. No spills, no drips, no muss, no fuss. Just have a steady hand and be good about it. That's it. So we got 2 extra bottles, maybe 2.5 extra bottles. So I gotta solve this problem. That's all right though. That's what I do. I solve problems. After all, these are solutions. I'm in the solution business because I don't feel like going slow on this one. There's no fill level to meet. All right, this is going to go in my office. In fact, I think I have a half a bottle in my office too. And eventually home with me. Home with me. Is this the rye? That is the rye. All right, so you are hearing the disembodied voice of the Old Humble guy as I consolidate 2 partial bottles in my office. This is what happens at the end of a run when I have little bits of bottles, or when I come back from tastings. I merge bottles together. So, and you can't see it because it's in my office, and my office is private. So there, I don't want anybody seeing my sex dungeon. Get off my back. All right. The elections in Texas are pretty interesting this week. Texas is going through a thing, and it's been a long time coming. Greg Abbott is running for his 4th term as governor. The Republicans have been in power in all 3. They've had a majority in the House and Senate in the state. They have had the governorship in the state. They have had every statewide seat. Ag commissioner, railroad commissioner, attorney general, both senators, and a majority of the representatives in our congressional delegation have been Republicans since, I want to say, 96 is when our last statewide elected, it might have been 92 when we had our last statewide elected Democrat in office, and I believe that was Kay Bailey Hutchinson, senator from Texas, and she was replaced by John Cornyn, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, uh, but yeah, Texas is going through. It's been a long time coming. Back 8 years ago, Beto O'Rourke ran against Ted Cruz in an attempt to unseat Ted Cruz and came damn close. Came within, I think, half a percentage point, something like 500,000 votes of unseating Ted Cruz in the senatorial competition that year. But that was when was that? 2016, I believe it was. So that was a Donald Trump year. So Ted Cruz survived because of Donald Trump, partly because of Donald Trump, and partly because Texas has this ecosystem of Republican donors. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is 1, 2, 3 cases. One more case. We have this ecosystem of Republican donors, and it's this $250 million machine that just elects Republicans, and they don't ever have to spend money here. It's been built since 1990, and it's not hyperbole in the least to say that the Democratic Party abandoned the state of Texas after 1990s redistricting. They lost power in the House, the Texas House and Senate, and then there was redistricting, and the Democrats just pretty much avoided the state. They were just like, we quit, we're done, we're not going to even compete for Texas, we're going to double down and own California and New York. Y'all can have Texas. So the state was pretty much abandoned to Republicans, and Republicans have built this ecosystem over the course of the last 3 decades, almost 4 now. We're going to go with the Special Reserve next. That way I don't have to clear out the line, because the Special Reserve and rye are both robust in flavor. And I need some Special Reserve. I have some Special Reserve boxes, but I just need more. But I'm not gonna start filling bottles yet. I'm gonna move over to here and start sealing and corking and get these taken care of. So I've got 1, 2, it's like 3 cases of rye over here, plus 1, 2. This is a partial case there, so 1 more. But yeah, anyway, in that time, I'll let you guess how Texas has fared as far as education ratings, outside investment, literacy rates, teen pregnancy, divorce rates, all those things. The population has skyrocketed, as has poverty. The state's made more money than ever before, but it's not being distributed to the people, and it's not translating to. How's this looking? Am I in the right spot? Let's turn you just a little bit and twist you up. We can just turn this down just a little bit. How's that? Yeah, that'll work. So yeah, it's a great place for business. Not a great place for raising families and whatnot. At least if you follow through with the metrics, people getting health care, like if you're a business, this is a great place to be, and you can pay people a lot of money. Like, the cost of living is low, but that cost of living does not include the cost of dying or being sick or things like that. And yeah, most people don't get sick. Everybody gets sick at some point, but most people, don't have catastrophic illnesses. that is a rare event in a population. For any individual person, the likelihood that you're going to have a catastrophic illness is low, but the likelihood that you're going to get old and die is extremely high. And I guess the metric is, in their mind, the rubric, I guess would be the word for it. I don't know. Is that, hey, they stay healthy for their working years, and then when they get sick, they go into Medicare. But hopefully they don't get sick before they're 65. But it is a great place to live. I love the state. I'm not gonna lie. It's a great place to live as long as nothing goes wrong. There's just a very thin social safety net. And maybe that's how it is everywhere in the country. But everywhere in the country isn't as successful and wealthy as Texas either. So that's the unfortunate byproduct. And hopefully this renaissance that we've been seeing in the last 8 years of trying to put Texas back in play, I don't even care if it's a Republican state or a Democratic state, to be honest. Back in the day, in the even as recently as the 90s, but in the 80s, we had national level statesmen coming out of the state of Texas. As recently as the year 2000, we elected a president from the state of Texas, George W. Bush. And granted, he was seen by most as kind of a baboon and a bit of a doofus, but he won, and he won re-election. He was seen on the national stage and the world stage as a respectable, even if he wasn't necessarily respected. He was a sober-minded, even if he wasn't always sober in his youth. He was a real governor and a real executive. He took his job seriously. He wasn't just in it for, compare him to Rick Perry or Ted Cruz or, hell, even John Cornyn. Compare him to these guys John Cornyn's probably the closest we've got right now to a nationally respectable politician. And John Cornyn straight up sold his soul to be Donald Trump's lapdog. Straight up sold his soul in when was that? I guess it was 6 years ago. 2020, to get reelected, because 2018 would have been Ted Cruz's last election. But we can go down a whole list. Sam Rayburn, John Tower, Lloyd Benson, Kay Bailey Hutchison, the lady governor, I can't remember her name. Ross Perot. He was a bit of a loony, but Jesus, as an independent third-party candidate, he won, 11% of the vote, something like that, in 1992? We used to produce real statesman-level, national-level politicians out of the state of Texas, because we had a thriving, lively debate and discussion. We were a purple state. We would go back and forth between Republicans and Democrats. We may have mostly voted for Republicans on presidential elections, but I think we voted for Bill Clinton in 92. No, not 92. It would have been 96. 92, we almost certainly voted for Bush because he was a hometown guy. Came from right here in Houston, as a matter of fact. We used to. How LBJ was a Texan. Dwight Eisenhower was from Texas. We used to raise heavy hitters. coming out of Texas. But now we're stuck with Ted fucking Cruz and Dan Paxton, or Dan Patrick and John Paxton and all these, Greg Abbott and all these other goobers who are just racing to the bottom and arguing about whether or not, poor people deserve to eat. Like, Jesus Christ, man. Are you telling me that feeding people, getting food isn't a right? Fucking hell. Well, maybe they just have to starve to death. Maybe we need to put the children to work. Maybe they need to work when they're 12. It's fucking hell, man. Anyway, I said I don't mind talking about the election, but I really don't want to talk about the world burning down around us. But I miss the days, and I don't mind saying this, I miss the days when we could have a thriving and lively debate in the state of Texas, and one side wasn't sitting there saying, oh, well, you got kids dressing up as furries trying to use cat litter boxes, and then, then the counterpoint being, yeah, but none of those claims have been confirmed as true. And then someone piping up and saying, well, my son says that there's furries. Like, yeah, people with cat ear headbands aren't furries, though. That's not, I guarantee he doesn't know what a furry is, and I guarantee the people he thinks are furries aren't using cat litter boxes in his school. Oh, well, it came up in a discussion at the school board meeting. Yeah, but are they using cat litter boxes at the school? Just because it comes up in a discussion at the school board meeting doesn't mean it's actually happening. It came up in a bill in front of the Texas Senate, and it still wasn't happening. I miss the days when we could have real topical discussions, and one side not just being stuck in a fantasy land of nonsense and bullshit. But, whatever. You could sit there and be all like kids in school, like school lunch. We shouldn't be spending our money through taxpayer funds to hire a third party to come to the school and provide lunch, and then tell the kids or the parents that they have to pay an additional fee to Landry's or Aramark or whatever company has been contracted in order for them to eat lunch. That's ridiculous. And the response to that is, define what a woman is. Like, what the fuck does that have to do with anything? God damn. It's exhausting having to deal with these people in this state. And it's because of this, well, you could say it's partly because of the abandonment and just letting one party control the conversation for 30 years and literally drive the discourse down to the bottom of the ocean. Just, this race to the bottom has been never ending and exhausting, and nobody's willing to stop and say, hey, let's maybe not dig a little bit deeper and see how much lower we can make the bar. But that was one of the cool things about this election cycle. While the Republicans are over there ripping each other apart because Paxton is a complete and total, he's a felon. He was indicted by the U.S. Justice Department. He was indicted by a Texas district attorney. He was impeached from office but not removed because Texas Republicans are cowards. Remember, they control the state. They could have had him impeached if they wanted to. They could have had him removed if they wanted to, but they did not. They just wanted him impeached, and that whole fucking embarrassing incident is right there in public domain. While they were over there ripping each other apart, we had Jasmine Crockett, who is likely going to be a transitional figure, transformational is what I mean to say, figure going forward in the Democratic Party. But we also had James Talrico walking around going, guys, we have real problems, and we should address these problems as one group of people, as Texans, as Americans. We should address these damn problems, because these problems aren't going to go away just because you have an R or a D, or you supported Trump, or they're not going to go away. They're going to still be there. And we need to address them, or we should do something about them, because it's not the world we live in is the world we live in. It's going to be the world we die in. But the world our kids live in is still a world that's being formed. And the world that their kids live in, and the world that their kids live in, is the world that's still being formed. And it's our obligation and our duty not just to live in the world that was given to us, but to work to build a world that our kids can be proud of and thrive in. Not just survive, but thrive. And that is a message that has been absent from politics for damn near 8 years. Because on the one side, you've had the just lies and bullshit, and on the other side is just an accusation that the one side is a threat to our democracy. They are, but it's really hard to motivate people to go out and vote to preserve a threat to our democracy when, you go bankrupt if you get the fucking flu. Anyway, God damn it, I don't want to talk about the world burning. See, clearly it's been on my mind. But that's what was really cool about Talrico's campaign. One of the reporters last night that I was watching in the coverage of the results said that he had followed Talrico. It's pronounced Talrico. There's an A in there. I've learned recently. One of the reporters said that he would follow James Talarico from Houston to Dallas to San Antonio to Austin, all across the state, all up and down the state, and he only heard him mention Trump's name twice. And I was like, oh my God, thank God we have people who are actually moving on from this nosebleed of a fucking headache disaster that's a pedophile in chief. I mean, clearly we don't have the people in office now who's going to hold him accountable. Maybe we'll have people in office after November who will hold him somewhat accountable for his crimes, but I'm not going to hold my breath. We're more likely to get the cheeseburger from heaven to take care of this problem for us, but whatever. All right, this is the last 3 bottles for the back label. Then I'm going to switch over to the front label for our double oak rye. And then once I'm done with these, I'll move them off to the side and we'll start bottling up the special reserve for the next batch. And, probably the most annoying thing is that even when the world is burning down around us, the people most responsible for bringing this fuckknuckle into office, they still double down on their bullshit. They're like, oh yeah, that's cool. Like, they're fine. They're fine with all of the bad shit as long as the racism is big enough and bold enough. And it's like, at least they're arresting the immigrants and shipping them out. Yeah, that's what they're doing. They're arresting just the immigrants, the worst of the worst. Sure, that's what they're doing. Little old ladies and vending machines and taco vendors and food trucks and restaurant workers. They're just, the worst of the worst. They're all so full of shit, and it's so frustrating. Anyway, let's talk about rye whiskey. Rye whiskey is the oldest version of whiskey that exists. Before there was single malt barley, single malt whiskey, Scotch whiskey, an Irish whiskey, there was rye whiskey. Rye whiskey comes from a grain that is, rye grain, and rye grows in marginal. I should probably check. Hey, how about that? Uncle Larry's still in the house. Traveling Fools has joined the party. Traveling Fools does trivia on Sundays and probably at other times during the week. And some of the time, I'm actually able to catch at least 1 or 2 games of trivia. And some of the time, I'm even able to pay attention close enough, because most of the time, I'm actually doing some kind of work in the background. But hey, one of the silkiest, smoothest voices, and if I'm not mistaken, also a denizen of Texas. Welcome to the party, Traveling Fools. Traveling Fools, Uncle Larry, Traveling Fools. And everybody else who's lurking in the background. I see you, I just don't see your names. I know you're lurking back there. You can't hide from me. I have a little graph on my screen. Not this screen, that screen. I have a little graph on that screen where I can kind of look at it and see how many people are there in the background. Guy just drove by in a blue truck. It's always fun when these people drive by. They drive by real slowly because I got these bay doors that are open as the crosswind comes through. I've got a big old fan over there. They drive through and they see me working in here and they drive real slow. Try and get a look at what's going on inside. But see, they can't really see this from over there because I've got like barrels and stuff in the way there. So they can't really see what I'm doing. Anyway, rye whiskey, historically speaking, is the oldest whiskey that exists. Before whiskey was even called whiskey, they made a spirit with rye grains, probably unaged, in a way. So spirits themselves, distilled spirits, traveled north and west out of the Fertile Crescent area. They started off as a process for making makeup, eye black, eyeshadow, what we would call today's mascara, the lambic process. That's why stills are called alembic stills. It was a lambic process that would take a substance suspended in water, what they would use to dissolve the thing, and then boil off the substance, or boil off the water and leave the substance behind. And when they would do that for fermented beverages, the water would be left behind, and the fermented beverage would go up the column, coalesce, and be collected. And then they realized they were getting a much more concentrated fermented beverage, and it was more efficient and effective. And it moved its way out of the Fertile Crescent and up into the grasslands, where they were growing wheat and grains, and also rye grains being very hardy grains that would grow just about anywhere. That's why you can take rye grass seeds and throw them in your front yard. You get a nice green front lawn throughout the fall and winter months. They don't like growing in the heat, except for the farm versions. They will grow in the warmer climates up north, but they really do like the cold weather. Up in Nebraska, the cold weather months in Nebraska and such. Okay, these are all ready to go. I'm going to put 4 in this box because this is a partial box of double oak rye. 3, 4. And then this is an empty box that can take another case. 2, 4. But when they started moving further east or further west through Europe, there were more grains available for fermentation, and the cereal grains became more varied. And by the time they made their way to Scotland, they weren't just using rye to make whiskey, they were using barley to make whiskey. And the Scots were the first ones to take that barley and put it into a barrel and age it in what was then what commonly became known as Scotch whiskey. The term water of life was not originally ascribed to whiskey. Eau de vie was the term used as alcohol was moving around the eastern and western parts of Europe, because it was seen as a elixir that would prevent disease and oftentimes would bring people back to life, reanimate them after they were sick, because it would in many ways reset the gut biomes and kill whatever infections were inside of you. Hence the name OG, water of life. And when they moved further into Scotland, the Picts and Scots used their Gaelic term, Whiskey, which means the same thing, water of life, breath of life, water of life. Ode, what was it? Bregave, breath of life, and Whiskey, water of life. And that is where we get the term whiskey. So, before it was even called whiskey, whiskey was being made in the plains of Europe. But it wasn't until it made its way to Scotland that it became known as actually whiskey. And it wasn't until the 19-teens, the early part of the 20th century, when the definition of whiskey was actually codified into law. We had a thing that we called whiskey, just like there had been a thing that was called vodka that originated on the plains of Europe, which was known, in the eastern portions of Europe, which was known as vodka, or colloquially as vodka, or some derivative thereof in the eastern Slavic languages. And it simply means little water. That's what vodka means, little water. Let's turn this back this way so we can see everything again. There's the table, there's the bottler, good. All right. But vodka wasn't defined as an actual spirit until, at least not in America, until the teens, 19-teens. So for 600 some years, people all around the world were making vodka, but it wasn't codified into law as to what vodka was. The level of distillation required to turn it into vodka. Because vodka is not just, you're welcome, Uncle Larry, vodka is not just alcohol. It's alcohol distilled up to a certain point. And whiskey's not just whiskey. Whiskey is a spirit distilled from fermented cereal grains. The fermented cereal grains cannot be fermented with other agents like sugar. Otherwise, you're fermenting sugar. And that is rum. Rum has to be fermented cane sugar. You can't use sweet beets, sweet radishes, whatever the fuck we get our sugar from, mostly in the United States. We don't normally get our sugar from cane sugar in the United States. So, I need 12 cases of Special Reserve, but I think I'm going to need more because I'm short on my rye. But I'm going to see what I can do to address that shortness. I don't know. This is problematic. 1, 2, 3. I think I've got 4 or 5 cases of the rye. I'm not sure. That's Special Reserve. That's rye. 1, 2. Please be rye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I got 5 cases of rye plus 1 more at the other distributor. That's 6 total. I have a few in the shelf. What was I talking about? Vodka. Yeah, it was codified as vodka. Rum was codified. All those different spirits types were codified into law in, I want to say, the early 1900s. And part of that is because people were just making stuff and calling it whiskey. And there was a thriving industry, a thriving whiskey industry, centered mostly in Kentucky. And they wanted to make sure, in the same way that winemakers wanted to ensure that their product wasn't being bastardized by unfair or unserious players elsewhere in the industry. You know, there were people like literally taking like paint thinner or just water and putting it in the bottles. And so whiskey, most spirits by law have to be at least 80 proof in the bottle if you want to call it that spirit. So whiskey, vodka, rum, gin, tequila, mezcal, all the ones that are defined, they have to be at least 80 proof in the bottle. Because there were people who were diluting it at each railroad stop along the way. And by the time it got to the end of the railroad stop, it was mostly water, if there was even any alcohol in it at all. That's also why we have bottles now with the safety seals on the bottles, because they're tamper-proof safety seals, and they wanted to make sure that the whiskey that people, every stop along the way, the barrels were being tampered with. So at every stop along the way, a little would come out of the barrel, a little bit of something different would be replaced in the barrel. You'd take aged whiskey and replace it with raw whiskey. They would take something that they fermented and distilled in their backyard, take what was in the barrel out and put the new stuff in. I mean, I can't imagine if you're in a place like, I don't know, Phoenix or Tombstone, you know, way down on the line, and you're stealing from a barrel, like how shitty that whiskey must be that you were stealing out of the barrel. Anyway, that's why we have safety seals on the bottles. That's why we have bottles. Do I give my spent grain to cattle farmers? Yes, and that farmer's name is Carl. His farm is a little bit further north of here. With rum, though, there's no spent grains because rum is just sugar. So I used 60 pounds of sugar and 20 pounds of water to make the rum, and there's no byproduct. It's just whatever's left is just going to be water and yeast. Fools, drop your schedule for trivia. And I know you do other shows, that Art Bell nonsense that you do. I know you gather up with the fascists over at Gutter's Pub and celebrate the regime. You're not always there, but I haven't had a chance to go in there and harass them recently. I would love to pop my head in and see how they were doing. Last time I was there, they were still celebrating still celebrating everything being on fire. I'm not a fan, as you might be able to guess. But you already knew that. You say you like to see me come around. But I suspect that may not be entirely true. I suspect you might dread it secretly. But I'm okay with that. I can play your trivia occasionally when I come through. What else? Oh, ice. Ice has been a topic of discussion at the Old Humble household recently, because I'm working on a video talking about ice and the different types of ice and what ice does, cubes versus spheres, and blah, blah, like what, because we use spheres here at the distillery. We use ice spheres. And the reason I use ice spheres is twofold. One, they fit in my cups better. It's a 2.5-inch sphere. It fits right, nestles right into the base of the cup. It is the perfect size for our cups. The cubes are a little bit too big for the cup. And in order to use the cube, I'd have to trim it down a little bit, and that kind of defeats the purpose of a big-ass cube going into your cup. If you got to trim it down, I mean, what's the point? It's a big-ass cube. And the physics behind the ice is actually quite fun if you're a nerd like me. It's fun to kind of explore that and see what it does and what it means, why you should use one type of ice over the other, clear ice versus cloudy ice. How do you make the cleared ice? I even found one of those stupid ice. Well, I say it's stupid, because it's stupid. It's a waste of fucking time. I found one of those ice presses that takes a cube and turns it into a ball, which is just dumb. But one of the things that I found, I can kind of go down the big stuff real quick. Ice, there's the difference between a cube and a sphere is marginally nothing. They are both. The cube has about double the surface area and double the volume of a sphere. Roughly, a 2-inch cube versus a 2-inch sphere have roughly the same volume. The cube has roughly double the volume and double the surface area of the sphere. Because of the shape of the sphere, it just has, its volume is less. And its surface area is less because it's rolled around instead of perfectly flat sides. But the surface area to volume ratio is the same. So the sphere will melt away faster because it's got less volume to it, but it won't melt away at a faster rate. And the marginal difference between whatever rate of melting that happens is too small for the human body to realize it in real time. And what ends up happening is you take whatever of the ice is left of your sphere after 2 drinks and toss it, and you take whatever's left of your cube after 3 or maybe 4 drinks and toss it, and you get a fresh piece. So what ends up happening is basically over a course of a night, you're going to use 2 spheres or 2 cubes. That's it. 2 cubes for 4 drinks or 2 spheres for 4 drinks. And after the 4th drink, you're going to have a little bit more of the cube left over than you are of the sphere. That's it. That's the big difference between the 2 cubes and spheres. I don't use the sphere because it's more efficient, or that it melts slower or any other reason like that, because it doesn't. I use the sphere because it fits in my glass. Now, when it comes to the clear stuff, ooh, commercial. Pro CNC in a 2-foot by 2-foot footprint. Cool. I don't know who they are. I didn't see a name. I didn't see a name for the business. Otherwise, I'd give them a shout out. Shout out to whatever business that was. What was I saying? Oh, clear ice versus regular ice. There's also no difference in clear ice and regular ice. Regular ice has imperfections in it, which is the reason why it's not clear. Clear ice freezes in a specific direction, which pushes all the imperfections to the bottom of the vessel that it's freezing in, So when it freezes from the top down, the ice on top is clear, the ice on bottom is cloudy as it goes down. Or the ice on the outside is clear, and as it goes in, that's where you get your little bubble pockets and imperfections. That's all. Boiling your water, distilling the water, that's not going to get, filtering the water, that's not going to get any of those imperfections out. They're micro imperfections, they're air bubbles. You can't vibrate it out. And even if you could, why would you? That's so much work to just get clear ice. There's easier ways to get clear ice than doing all that. One of the allegedly easy ways is you take a cooler and you put it in your freezer, and then the block of ice that freezes inside the cooler is going to freeze from the top down, just like in a lake, because the sides of the cooler are insulated. And then you get perfectly clear ice on top. And if you stop it from freezing all the way to the bottom, you'll have the base of it, which will be pretty much liquid. All that unfrozen liquid water will be right there. Good? That's good. At the bottom of your little thing. Now, the challenging part is actually getting that out of the cooler, because ice freezes to the side of coolers and it doesn't like to come out. So, I mean, I sat there and beat on that stupid thing for like 5 minutes to get it to come out of the cooler. And I got a sheet of ice that was about 1.5 inches thick. So cool. A sheet of perfectly clear ice that was about 1.5 inches thick. Now what you need to do is cut it. So you take a serrated edge knife or a saw and you score it and you cut it down so that it has lines in it. And then you take a hammer and you hit it to break off big old chunks of it. And now you've got big ass chunks of ice. So what do you do with big ass chunks of ice? Well, you can put it in a big ass cup or trim it down even more so that it fits in your fucking cup. Yeah. Good point. We've all beat on something for 5 minutes just to get something to come out. Now, I went and got one of those ice presses so I could take one of those chunks of ice and put into the ice press and freeze it down into a sphere. So I had a perfectly round, perfectly clear sphere of ice. And it took me about 24 hours to do it and a shit ton of manual labor. Or I could have just used ice cubes out of my freezer. Or they have these little gizmos. It's like a tall insulated cup about yay big with a silicone mold that drops into the cup and makes the sphere. So you pull the mold out and it has a sphere, and you pop the sphere out and it's perfectly clear sphere because it freezes from the top down because the cup's insulated. And in the exact same amount of time as it took to freeze that big old sheet of ice, I had a perfectly clear sphere of ice without having to saw the fucking ice and break it up into chunks and then take chunks and put it into another stupid little gizmo. It was just easy. And that, when you're drinking whiskey, like the last thing you want to do is go to the lake and saw off a hunk of ice and drag it back to your cabin and trim the ice down to I need to seal these up. Trim the damn ice down into a fucking ball so you can put it in your cup. That was just that whole exercise was just the whole time through that whole stupid exercise. It was just, this is fucking stupid. This is absolutely stupid. This is so stupid. Top Shelf Dustin has joined the party. What's up, my man? So anyway, there are hard ways and easy ways of getting clear ice. But The net result of the clear ice is that it looks cool in your cup, but doesn't really do anything to your drink. Now, because it doesn't have the imperfections on the inside, it won't shatter and break into little pieces. You're more likely at the end of your third cocktail or second or third cocktail to have a single smaller piece of ice rather than a broken pile of shards. But ultimately speaking, looking at the net result, if you've got one of those, if you've got 15 or 20 bucks laying around and you want to get a couple of clear ice molds, couple of little gizmos that makes clear ice, drop 15 or 20 bucks and get a couple of little gizmos that make clear ice. You yourself are probably not going to go through more than 2 balls of ice or 2 cubes of ice in a given night. And you're probably not going to go through more than 10 in a week. So you can, every day you just empty those molds out and put the ice aside. You're going to have plenty of ice. Get 2 sets of 2, and you make 4 balls of ice every night. For 30 bucks, it's way better than wasting money on one of those stupid ice presses or a $300 machine or anything like that. That's what it all boils down to. Neat whiskey is a huge time saver. That is correct. Neat whiskey is a ginormous time saver. You don't have obstacles in your drink. You don't have to mess with all that. But when you're making cocktails, it's hard to have a old-fashioned neat. You want an old-fashioned with a nice big block in your drink, and you don't want a slushy with a fistful of little shards of ice in your drink. You want a proper cocktail. It's a nice presentation. It's neat. But at the same time, your friends aren't coming over to your house and having cocktails and thinking because the ice you put in the drink is cool. They're coming over and having cocktails because you've got good whiskey. You make good cocktails. You are, I dare say, an interesting conversation to be had. They enjoy your company. So they're coming over and having a couple of drinks with you because they enjoy your company. I've interacted with several of you fine folks here on the YouTubes, and I find that hard to believe. But stranger things have come true. I mean, MK Ultra was an actual thing where the CIA kidnapped people and gave them LSD. So it's not completely out of the question that that your friends find you to be interesting conversationalists. I guess. I just find that to be amusing. Just use the ice cubes you already. Exactly. That's the thing. Use the ice cubes you already have. If you have a mold for cubes, use the mold for cubes. If you have a mold for spheres, use the mold for spheres. If you don't have either, just hit that little button on your freezer door and get ice out of your freezer or refrigerator. And if you don't have that, then use the bucket that's in your freezer there where you dump the ice from your ice trays and use that ice. That's it. You don't have to overthink this stuff. This is, alcohol is an ancient cure for ugliness, unfunniness, lack of boring stories, and poor dancing. It has been known to be a remedy for small snake bites, and it is as effective as a new moon in increasing fertility among ugly couples. So, hey, you don't have to overthink this shit. We've had it for centuries. And we've had whiskey since before we had ice readily available. So, you know, it'll work. It really will. We had whiskey before we had cocktails. Cocktails are a fairly modern invention. You don't have to overthink it. And that was one of those things when me and my wife were 1,000 years ago, we were trying to build our family and have our babies. You know, we were both professionals. We were both working. We're still both professionals and both working. And we were struggling to find the energy and time to do it. You know, because we tired during the week. You know, you're screwing on the weekends. Even when you're 20, 25 years old, you get worn down and tired during the course of the week. And you kind of save it up for the weekend, right? But I also worked at a nonprofit that helped advocate for kids in the court system called Child Advocates. And I would come home and tell my lovely wife, like, baby, we are overthinking it. We both need to just take some meth, go to the high school, and bang it out underneath the bleachers. Because that's how these fucking kids are going out there and having 3, 4, 5 babies at a time. And just chronically, I mean, if they can do it and go through the court system, we can do it. We're grown-ass professional people with college degrees. All we need to do, maybe a little heroin might do it. Just, you know, do a little bit of the drugs. Not a lot. We don't want to like hurt the baby or hurt us, but you know, just a little bit of the drugs and go to the high school and bang one out. Make us a classic American small town family. She did not like that idea. She thought that was a terrible idea. I thought it was the solution to all of our issues. Like, baby, let's just get a couple of bottles of Mad Dog, a couple of blunts, maybe some meth. Because it seems that meth was really making women fertile. They were having all the babies, it seemed. And I can say that because she doesn't watch these videos. But if she did, she would confirm. So she would nod her head and say, yep, my husband's an idiot. Good times. Good times. My son, one of my sons, speaking of the devil, is going to be getting out of track and field practice. Wait, does he have practice today? I don't think he has practice today. All right, never mind. I need 5 more cases of Special Reserve after this. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4. Why did I just do 4 cases? Oh, because that's all the room I had over there. I did 4 cases. So that should give me 6 total. Every once in a while, the gun gets hot and burns up my little thing. Anyway, where are we at? Double check the chat here. The only mixer whiskey I have is E.H. Taylor. And I need that for making offensive videos. Oh, Buffalo Trace. America's favorite factory whiskey that has convinced them that it's craft whiskey. Handcrafted in small batches of only 10,000 gallons. Yeah, sure, that's a small batch. All right. Banging one out on drugs under the bleachers in a high school is looked at very differently when you don't attend that school and you're over 21. That is true. That is true, which is why my wife is the one who makes most of the decisions in our house. But we were also pretty young. We weren't high school young, but we were still pretty young. We could have gotten away with it if it weren't for those darn kids. All right, that was quiet time. I had in between thoughts there. I just realized. I mean, I'm on YouTube. I should not have dead air, right? I could just sit here quietly. I think there's some background music, right? Yeah, there's some background. There's quiet background music, but it's there. Who's this advertising on the site? Lifelong Pathways. Shout out to Lifelong Pathways. I'm assuming that's a dating site for the old and lonely. All right, so what else is there to talk about? Destin, shoot up a conversation topic. I've got about at least 45, well, probably 30 minutes left. So shoot something out there. Let's see what I can riff off of. We can talk about movies that didn't have to be made. That's always a fun topic to talk about. Like movies that, like, if the protagonist hadn't done anything, the story arc wouldn't have had, like, it all happened because the protagonist did a thing. Like Back to the Future 3. All of that happened in Back to the Future 3 because Marty went back to the 1885 without spare parts. And Doc could have simply put a bullet in Marty's head and written another letter to 1955 and told Marty to come back to 1855, or was it 1886? I think it was 1886. Come back to 1886 with spare parts and a tank of gasoline. And all of Back to the Future 3 would have just been a line of Western Union delivery men showing up one after another in that rain shower, the thunderstorm in 1955, and Marty eventually going back to 1886 and seeing a graveyard of Martys and a parking lot full of DeLoreans. Just stacked up for every single time that he fucked up going back to the past. And then, like, the movie would have been, 15 minutes. And that's it. Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like, all that work that Indiana Jones did ended up being for nothing. Because the Ark was lost at the beginning of the movie, and it was hidden at the end of the movie. And had he done nothing at all, they wouldn't have found the Ark, because the Nazis followed him to Miriam's bar in Mongolia in order to get the amulet. So if Indiana Jones would have done absolutely nothing, they never would have found Miriam. They never would have gotten their hands on the Ark. And even though they did get their hands on the Ark, it still ended up being locked away, lost, and gone in a file room of the CIA. We should high school kids. Oh, Vanessa Kitty's in the house. A question about the poop hole loophole, and Vanessa Kitty shows up. I'm sorry, Vanessa. You shouldn't be subjected to this kind of crass deliberations. Fun story. The Good Night Show with Nina was a show that my sons loved. It was on, I think, Nickelodeon, and it was a bedtime show with Nina and Star. And Nina wore her pajamas because it was bedtime, and she was just the cutest little, most adorable girl. 20-something, just had a little button nose. She was just cute. She looked like a younger version of my wife. I'm not even lying about that. And there was and I'm not the only dad that found Nina to be cute, because there were Facebook groups of dads who were fans of Nina's or some shit. I don't know. You guys are weird. To say the very least, those guys were weird. Oh, and Dustin, last time you were asked about my watch, this is a new watch. My last watch broke. This is a U.S. Polo Association watch with the date and a little fake diamond at the top that I picked up at Walmart for $7. So there you go. But anyway, Nina, Good Night Show with Nina and Star. Very popular on Nickelodeon. And it turns out Nina got her job as Nina on the Good Night Show because the first host of the Good Night Show was fired. Why was she fired, Old Humble Guy? And that's a strange piece of trivia to know about a child's Good Night Show. Oh, the first Nina was fired because she did a video about maintaining her virginity. It was some YouTube video, a mock, one of those mock purity pledge things, where she's like, "Yes, I maintain my virginity because something along, like the tagline was something along the lines of, because anal doesn't count." And then she gets up and she's walking like her butt's sore. So yeah, that video came to light and she lost her job because that was unbecoming of a Nickelodeon children's show host. And it was, like, I don't even think she said the words anal. I think it might have been backdoor doesn't count or something to that effect. Whatever. It was about the poop hole loophole. And it was an objectively funny video. But alas, the powers that be did not appreciate that at all. And she lost her job. Poor original Nina. I think her original name was Marie or something like that. So this batch is our special reserve. Or this batch of bottles is the special reserve. Mr. Mom's in the house. Cheers, Mr. Mom. We're at the tail end of this bottling run. I'm actually slowing down a little bit. I was going much faster with the rye, but I was also trying to move on to the next thing with the rye. So, should teach. What's the proof on these bottles? The proof on these bottles, Mr. Mom, is 90 proof. All of my whiskey is done at 90 proof unless I specifically state otherwise. So you can just assume You can just assume that we're working at 90 proof at the Old Humble Distilling Company. Now, our cask strength rye is 120.6. Our rum is going to be 80. Once that test batch is done, our first batch we made at 80 proof. And yeah, that's where we'll be. That's what we'll be doing. So yeah, our special reserve is 90 proof. Always. Cheers from Northeast Oklahoma. Uncle Larry's in Orlando. If I have not sent my McDonald's, I just got a text say if I have not sent my McDonald's order. I don't know what that means. Why would I have a McDonald's order? Who eats McDonald's? Ugh. I don't think I've had a burger from McDonald's in shit since I was like 19. It was this burned up little hockey puck of a patty, and I was like, this is the worst fucking burger I've ever had. Especially considering there was a Wendy's right across the street. I could have had Wendy's. And I had a burned up little McDonald's puck. Cheers, Mr. Mo. Wait, she's 20. Nina was 20-something 15 years ago. I don't know if Nina is still 20-something, meaning that if they're still making videos with Nina and Goodnight Moon, or the Goodnight Show with Nina, if they're still making new videos with Nina, she's got to be 40 by now. But they may not be making new videos with her anymore. I don't watch Nickelodeon's children's shows anymore. It's been a minute since I've watched the Goodnight Show with Nina. Oh, you know who I'm talking about now. Yeah. It was a surprising story when I heard about it back in the day. Now I don't think she would be fired today for a comedy video like that. You know, this is back, God, this is early 2000s. So, you know, times have changed significantly. But at the same time, you know, you were Nickelodeon and you're thinking to yourself, is this the only good candidate we have? You know, companies don't hire the best candidates. They hire, you know, it's not the number one candidate. It's the best available candidate, I guess. You know, like 4 or 5 people can be plugged into that slot. Like most of us are interchangeable when it comes to the job we're doing. It's not like it's not like anybody is not expendable when it comes to, unless you're a sole proprietor in a business, you are not expendable. But theoretically, at least, if you're running your business correctly or successfully, if you're successfully running your business, you should be able to hire a manager to do your job. You should. So, to have an actress like Nina and think, or the original Nina, and think, we can't replace her. Yeah, you can. We can't replace Harrison Ford. Yeah, you can replace Harrison Ford. You can replace 80% of the NFL quarterbacks can be replaced with another NFL quarterback. There's maybe, hell, it's probably more than that. Probably 10% of the league is 3 quarterbacks. I'll be generous and say 6 quarterbacks can't be replaced. Not easily. And it might be closer to 4 cannot be replaced. Yeah, I mean, back in the back in the way back when, it would have been Joe Montana, Warren Moon, Chip Kelly, Brett Favre. Was Brett Favre contemporary with how long was Brett Favre? No, Brett Favre was not contemporary with Warren Moon, and I guess Troy Aikman would have been the other one. I think Troy Aikman was contemporaries with Warren Moon. You know, there's just not many, there's not many quarterbacks around whom you build the team. You can build a scheme around the quarterback, but most of the time the scheme can be modified for the next guy that needs to come in. You know, Matt Schaub is not irreplaceable. Joe Flacco is not irreplaceable. Those are mediocre quarterbacks who could be pulled out and replaced with the next guy on the list of quarterbacks. Anyway. 2026, that's a pro-life ad. Just remember seeing a YouTube clip because someone showed it to me. Yeah. Anybody who lives in Tomball, I'm going to go check you out. Yay, thanks. Tomball is a bit of a hike, but, you know, it's Houston. Everything's a bit of a hike in Houston. I don't have a frame of reference for Orlando, but I'm going to say like well, Fort Lauderdale to Miami is like an hour, if I'm not mistaken. So Tomball to Humble would be like that. It's like an hour. But they're both in the Houston Metroplex, so yeah. All right, and then we're coming to the last two bottles of Special Reserve. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, 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 boom. That's it. Ba-bam. The last bottle of this 4-case run. So that's 4 cases of Special Reserve plus 1, that's rye, 2 plus 2. So that's 6 cases of Special Reserve total at the moment. I'm going to need to crack another barrel in order to finish the order, because I'm going to need 12 cases of Special Reserve at least. So that's fine, because I've got another barrel right there. I've got 2 barrels of Special Reserve right there. So that's another 40 cases of Special Reserve. 40 cases. And the rye's coming in a couple of weeks. All right, guys, let's, I'm going to call it. I mean, I could box that stuff up, but I've got other work that needs to get done. So, we do have audio. Yeah, we got audio. It was like Waxahachie to Plano. Yeah, that's right. Waxahachie to Plano and DFW. That's about right. There are 30 teams, 5 special QBs, 5 terrible, and 28 mediocre. You can't really replace a mediocre QB, as you'd be stuck with a bad one. We see that's just the thing. I would argue that the difference between a mediocre QB and a bad QB is the rest of the team around them. I mean, there's legitimately, truly bad QBs. Like, you know, they get out there and they throw it to the wrong team. They trip over their own feet. But there are a lot of good quarterbacks that are second and third string, that are second string quarterbacks behind mediocre quarterbacks. They're waiting in the wings, so to speak. So behind those 5 special QBs are 3 good quarterbacks who are waiting to be a starting quarterback in some other team. And on those 20 teams with mediocre quarterbacks, you just take your dude and swap it with that dude, and then you could just swap quarterbacks, and it's not going to make any fucking difference to your team. Your 8-win quarterback, their 8-win quarterback. Nobody, big damn deal. You can just take one out of here and plug them into there. Take one out of there, plug them into here. You don't want to swap them out with the shitty guys, obviously. But I'm just saying, in those middle 20, they're mostly interchangeable. Like most of your baseball players, you drop that second baseman, you pick up that second baseman. There's maybe 3 special second basemen in all of Major League Baseball right now. Maybe there's 5 pitchers to a team, so there's maybe 5 special pitchers, 6 special pitchers in all of Major League Baseball that are true aces of the squad. Maybe 10, since there's 150 pitchers. I don't doubt that. See, I think teams struggle to find good quarterbacks because they're committed to their bad quarterback. They find it really hard to admit that they've made an error and drop the quarterback they've got, because it's such an important role on the team. Same with the coach; it's such an important role on the team. I think your average coach's tenure is something like 4 years, and that's heavily influenced by the guys who stay with the team for 6 or 7 years, 8 or 10 years. The long-term coaches, that kind of skews the balance up a little bit. I think if you take away the long-term quarterbacks and long-term coaches, the average duration of a coach and a quarterback is a lot shorter. And a lot of times those coaches are tied to their quarterback success. You look like a really good coach when you have Brett Favre as your quarterback, or Tom Brady, or what's his name, Kevin Gilbride, looked like a damn fine offensive coordinator when he had Warren Moon and the run and shoot offense putting up pinball numbers. I mean, you look like a damn genius when you've got Mark McGwire on your team just hitting home runs every time he trots out to the plate. Anyway, it's when Sohel Ohtani is pitching, you look like a good baseball coach. Anyway, this is so much more fun to talk about than our world burning down around us. I hope y'all enjoyed that much of the conversation, and put a pause on your doom scrolling for the day and for the week. God help us all. God help us all. Hopefully, fire extinguishers will be on sale, and we'll be able to put the fires out. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I am the Old Humble Guy, and you're you. So be proud of that. I'm proud of this. I will talk to you guys next time we do a thing. Next time I do a happy hour, we're going to be doing Arkansas whiskey. I just got to wait for the whiskey to come in, and we'll do a blind, live, uncorking and tasting. And keep an eye out for our next video that comes out about the ice. We're going to be talking about ice. Cheers, everybody. Have a great night, afternoon, whatever.